That brings us to our featured guest speaker today, who is one of our members, L. Kirk Hagen, who is Professor of Humanities at the University of Houston downtown and graduate of the University of New Mexico with a BA in philosophy as well as an MA in French, and as well as the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he got his PhD in linguistics. So Dr. Hagen he's a regular contributor to Skeptic magazine. He's published 10 articles for Skeptic on science education, philosophy, and religion. His research has also appeared in the ADFL Bulletin, the Proceedings of the West Coast Conference on Formal Linguistics, the Computer Assisted Language Instruction Consortium Journal, and Evolutionary Psychology. So please welcome our featured guest speaker today, L. Kirk Hagen.
Let me scroll up to the top. Well, thank you very much, Vic, for the introduction, and thank all of you for coming. I'm really honored to be here. This is, yeah, it might be easier if I do that, yeah. Before I start, however, I think we need to give a big round of applause for Vic Wang, who's done such a good job. This really awesome organization. I hope my presentation doesn't suck as much as the vacuum cleaner. As Vic mentioned, I have been writing for Skeptic magazine for about 10 years, so I get a cheap plug. There it is. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, or you can order issues online at skeptic.com. And the interesting thing for me about writing for this magazine is that I have never gone looking for a topic that I wanted to write about. I've done pieces on creationism, Christian fundamentalism, facilitated communication, but I've never really had to look for a subject. Somehow they always find me, and that's true of the subject that I wanted to talk to you today about, which is how corporate greed is undermining the war on cancer. And today's actually a very special day for me. You know, they say that the 5-year benchmark of living with a cancer diagnosis is very important. If you can make it to 5 years with a diagnosis of cancer, things are looking pretty good for you. And by some bizarre coincidence, today is the very last day of my 5 years of living with a cancer diagnosis. Wow. Anyway, so my talk is all about me. Cool. No, I'm kidding. It's about me and the 14 million Americans currently living with a diagnosis of cancer. So, in other words, let's see. 5 years ago tomorrow, I had to go to the hospital for a prostate biopsy. And so I show up early in the morning, and I'm met by a nurse named Holly. I might be making that up because it was Christmas time, but I think her name was Holly. And she led me down this maze of rooms and labs and offices at the hospital until we found this small room where I was going to have my examination. And you know, she sort of she gets me into this room, and she has me put on one of these hospital gowns that we're all familiar with, and these are so flattering. And you know, they've got floral patterns on them for some reason, which I just don't understand, because now I'm worried about whether or not my gown is going to clash with my socks. And I'm sitting there in this gown, of course, with my my butt exposed. And so I sit down in this room, and then I look across, and there's this bed that's kind of contorted in this unusual position like that. And next to the bed, there's this stainless steel cart. And on top of the cart, there is this large stainless steel medical device with wires coming out of the back of it. And right next to it, there's this tube of personal lubricant. Probably know more than you wanted to know, I know, but so anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm staring at this thing, and it's a very angry medical device, and it's communicating with me telepathically. This is how I remember it. But it's not actually saying anything. It's just like giving me some attitude, you know, just like that look. And I'm just sort of sitting there staring at it, and after a while, I think I have a picture of this. Yeah, that was taken right around this time, I'm sure. So I'm sitting there staring at this this medical device, and then after a while, Holly comes back in the room and she says, "Okay, Mr. Hagen, before the doctor gets here, I'm going to explain the procedure to you." And I'm thinking, Holly, there's a contorted bed sitting there. There's a tray with an intercontinental ballistic medical device sitting on a launch pad, and I'm sitting here with my rear end exposed, and there's a bottle of lubricant on the cart next to it. I think we both know what's about to happen. And then it happened, and I got the results about 2 days later. It was not what I expected, not what I hoped for, and I had surgery within 3 days, and then I went home for my convalescence. And I had told myself before I went home for convalescence that I was going to use this time to catch up on my reading. So I had this big stack of books next to my bed. But I quickly found out that the anesthesia was taking kind of a long time to wear off, and its effects were being augmented by my daily diet of hydrocodone, and I could not read and concentrate on anything more than a sentence long. So I just gave it up. I didn't have cable TV at the time, so the only entertainment I had was antenna TV. Now, those of you in the crowd who are 40 or younger, you're going to have to ask your parents or an elder to explain this concept of antenna TV. Let me just say that it's kind of lowbrow entertainment, mostly black and white reruns from the late 50s and 60s. And the sponsors are definitely down market products. These are products that are, as they say, not sold in any stores, which has to make you wonder, because stores are where you buy things. If there's something that's not sold in a store, you probably shouldn't be buying it. I mean, you know, there's crack and stolen hubcaps and so on. But anyway, I was watching this, and I saw this an advertisement for a product that was a pest repellent, and you could plug it into your wall, and it would send digital signals or something through the electric system in your house, and it would chase all the mice and everything away. And I saw this commercial, and I thought, how can they do that? I mean, I know this is antenna TV, I know the expectations are low, but how can you advertise for a product that obviously doesn't do anything? I mean, even if it does work, how do you know it's not also chasing your pets and your kids out of the house? I mean, you plug this in, and 2 weeks later, there's a picture of your kid on a milk carton. How can they get away with this? But then I watched the ad a couple more times, and I noticed something that I thought was even more remarkable. They never actually said that this device did anything at all. I thought, wow, that's really smart. There was a long list of things that it didn't do. They said, for example, you don't have to get on the phone and wait to make an appointment for the exterminator to come out. Well, yeah, that's true. They said you never have to get a refill for it. That's true as well. Let's see, what else did they say? Oh, they said you don't have to have strangers come in your house and spray toxic chemicals next to the pet dishes and your kids' food. True, true, and true. They said you could plug it in downstairs and upstairs. True. You could use it at home or business. True. And then they said it's their best-selling product. Well, if it's the only product they sell, and they sold exactly 1 unit, then I guess it is their best-selling product. And I remember thinking, that is brilliant. I mean, what better way could there be to keep the Federal Trade Communication wolves at bay than just to not say anything at all about your product? You can't be accused of making false claims about your product if you just don't say anything at all. Anyway, it was sometime after that I remembered this, and I started reading up on some of the cancer controversies that are raging in the United States right now. And in a moment of doubt and skepticism and cynicism, I wondered, could something like that be going on in the promotions for cancer medicines and treatments? And, well, let me just give you one example. I hope the audio will play automatically. This is a commercial that ran on TV for quite some time. It's a 2-minute TV ad from the, hold on. Oh, I guess I could probably. This is a commercial for the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. The CTCA was founded by Richard Stevenson. It is a for-profit hospital. Richard Stevenson is also on the board of directors of Freedom Works, which is a Tea Party-aligned super PAC that has been almost rabid in its opposition of the Affordable Care Act. And I'm going to play, it's a 2-minute ad, and I'm going to play the ad for you. And I'd like you to just to look at it casually, not the way a skeptic or a critic would look at it, but just the way a normal person who's watching TV would watch the ad. And but do focus on these phrases here. You'll hear the narrator say in very dramatic tones, "Every minute counts when you are fighting complex or advanced stage cancer." You'll hear Mr. Goodwin say, you just go online, and if you have prostate or lung cancer or whatever, you can see what their survival rates are. And then there's also a little blurb in there that says, Cancer Treatment Centers of America go way beyond what normal hospitals do, and they offer state-of-the-art medicine and unique treatment options. So let me play the ad for you.
It's probably something I've had for many years, and every year the PSA would be a little higher. I just kept kind of ignoring it. You know, one of those guy things. It'll go away. It'll go away. Finally, one day, Janet says, you're going to the doctor. They did a blood test. My PSA was 14. I needed to get a second opinion, so we contacted Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
To find out more about Cancer Treatment Centers of America and our unique treatment options for complex and advanced stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com.
The really great thing is that you just go online, and if you have prostate or lung cancer or whatever, you can see what their survival rates are.
You can also check for participating insurance plans. Cancer Treatment Centers of America is different. You feel it the moment you call or walk into one of our hospitals. It's state-of-the-art medicine, unique treatment options, and a level of compassion that cannot be copied. Why? Our people. People who give you not only their expertise, but their humanity and the most thoughtful, well-organized, patient-centered care you'll find anywhere.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America go way beyond what normal hospitals do. I knew that they had the technology to take care of my cancer. It's a device called CALICO.
CALICO is GPS for the prostate. We're able to get 4-dimensional real-time tracking of prostate movement during radiation treatment.
It eliminates a lot of my side effects. It makes sense. It just makes sense. I own a deli. I'm back at work. My customers come in and say, "Gosh, you look good." And some of them say I look better now than I did before I left. I didn't expect to learn a lesson about how to treat people by being in a hospital. You can tell when somebody really cares.
Every minute counts when you're fighting complex or advanced stage cancer, so please call or visit cancercenter.com today. Appointments are available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Well, pretty impressive. Jimmy Goodwin, who's featured in there, is not an actor. He's an actual cancer patient. Did they just say that Jimmy Goodwin had advanced stage cancer?
I believe 14.
How many how many heard, just out of curiosity, how many heard him say that?
PSA 14.
Is 14 advanced stage prostate cancer? He said that he had 14.
That was his blood test.
Hmm?
He said that the blood test. His blood test had a 14 PSA.
Yeah, that's correct. He did not have it. If you look very closely at the 6-second mark for exactly 2 seconds, this little phrase appears in the TV commercial. He had prostate cancer at stage 2A, which is one of the most curable cancers there is. The 5-year survival rate for stage 2 prostate cancer is approximately 100%, no matter where you go. They also refer to unique CALICO treatment. You probably remember there's this one point where the narrator says, we've got these unique treatment options that are at CTCA, and then she segued into the discussion of CALICO treatment, which is a legitimate form of radiation treatment. Did she say that CALICO treatment was available only at CTCA? No, she did not. The unique treatment options that Mr. Goodwin had at CTCA included naturopathic medicine, mind-body medicine, acupuncture, and Reiki therapy. These are all examples of complementary and alternative healthcare treatments. The National Institutes of Health has a division called the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. They are currently spending about $370 million a year researching these. The center has already spent about $2 billion, and they have admitted that nothing they have studied has been of therapeutic value for anything. That's what he was getting at CTCA. Did he say that he could go online and look at his survival statistics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he did not. He said you could. Because if Mr. Goodwin had gone online to look for his survival statistics, he would have found out that they are 100% no matter where you go. In fact, CTCA does not publish survival statistics for stage 2 cancer, for obvious reasons. Did they say in that commercial that CTCA has better survival rates than national average?
No.
No, they said you could go look and see. And if you do look and see, here's what you'll find. This is the actual chart that CTCA publishes on its website. The green bars are the survival rates that the CTCA claims. The blue bars are from the national database. That's the surveillance, epidemiology, and result. And you can kind of see, looking at these, that seems to be a little bit of advantage for CTCA, except when you get down to the stage 5. And by the way, this is for metastatic cancer, distant cancer, not for stage 2 prostate cancer. Now, how is it that CTCA even got these fairly small advantages? Well, there were a few tricks they used. One which kind of surprised me is this. You see where it says right here, the national rates are 24 and CTCAs are 31. The national rates are actually 28, which puts that a lot closer to 31. And all you do to have to find that out is you go to the National Cancer Institute. They publish it right there. There you see the 5-year survival rate, which is approaching 100%. If you look down to survival statistics, distant cancer is right there, 28%, not 24%. Now, why they said 24%, I have no idea. So that's one of the tricks that they use to inflate their survival rates. The other is that CTCA is a for-profit hospital. They do not accept uninsured patients. They rarely accept Medicare or Medicaid patients. And they have one other trick, and that is when they calculate their data, they only include people who began their treatment at CTCA. And you can see how this works. If you started your treatment somewhere else and then came to CTCA, the chances are you are at a more advanced stage of cancer, and that is going to deflate the survival rates for CTCA. So all they do is they exclude that from their data, and they end up with these very small margins. The question they asked just a minute ago too was, they don't say that their survival rates are better than national average. In fact, they include this very bizarre disclaimer on their website, which is in red right here, and it reads as follows. It's probably a little hard to see on the screen, but the disclaimer on the CTCA website is that it makes no claims about the efficacy of specific treatments, the delivery of care, nor the meaning of the CTCA and SEER analyses. In other words, they tell you on their website they don't know what their own data mean. They say that they make no claim about the efficacy of their own treatment. Why run a commercial? I'll give you another example. You probably saw this on TV a while ago. This is for a drug known generically as Sipuleucel T. It was marketed as Provenge by a corporation called Dendrian. And let me read first of all the hype that appeared in a medical journal. This is from Human Vaccines and Immunotherapeutics with Key Gardner as the lead author. And this is what the journal says about Sipuleucel T. This product is the culmination of decades of basic immunological and prostate cancer investigations and 13 years of clinical trial investigations. CP represents a paradigm shift in cancer therapeutics and represents the first approved autologous therapeutic cancer vaccine which has demonstrated a survival benefit. That's not from the company, that's from the medical journal. So let me run the ad.
No matter what, people can count on me to get the job done. So when my prostate cancer returned, My doctor told me that this time can be different with Provenge, a personalized treatment that lets me count on my own body to fight back.
Provenge is clinically proven to help extend life in certain men with advanced prostate cancer by taking your own blood cells and reprogramming them to jumpstart your immune system so it can attack your prostate cancer. Provenge can cause serious reactions, including those resulting from the infusion and stroke. Severe but infrequent infusion reactions include chills, fever, fatigue, weakness, breathing difficulties like shortness of breath, decreased oxygen and wheezing, dizziness, headache, high blood pressure, muscle ache, nausea, and vomiting. Tell your doctor about all of your medical problems, including heart problems, lung problems, or history of stroke. Call 1-800-462-1931 for more information. Talk to your doctor and find out if the time is right for Provenge. Provenge, helping you help yourself.
Lots of information crammed into 1 minute. Did they just say that Sipuleucel T will shrink your tumor? No. Did they say it will kill cancer? Cure it? No. They said it would extend life in certain men who are at advanced stage, and those certain men are men who are asymptomatic. So, the real story behind gangrene here, that glowing assessment in the medical literature appeared in 2012. The ad campaign started running in 2013, and in 2014, Dendrine filed for bankruptcy as cancer vaccine disappoints. So writes Reuters. Sipuleucel T does not shrink tumors. As I mentioned, it's indicated only for men who are asymptomatic. It extends life for 4 months at a cost of $90,000. And it has since gone bankrupt. Here's another example. This is MD Anderson, a little bit closer to home now. MD Anderson's answer to Calypso and Provenge is their Proton Therapy Radiation Center, which you may have seen billboards all around town advertising for proton therapy. Proton therapy, first of all, is a legitimate medical treatment that actually does kill cancer cells. But it's very hard to come by. There are only 13 proton centers in the United States. So if you live in, let's say, Albuquerque or Denver or Wichita or the Dakotas or Mississippi or the Carolinas, you don't have access to proton radiation therapy, which you probably can't afford anyway because it's anywhere from 2.5 to 5 times as expensive as normal photon therapy, which is what you probably will get if you go to some other hospital, not MD Anderson. I've got a picture of this. I want to share this quote first. This is how MD Anderson advertises this machine. Imagine a 196-ton cancer-killing machine that can target a patient's tumor with sub-millimeter precision while sparing nearby healthy tissues and minimizing side effects. In its most simple terms, that's proton therapy. And I have a picture of the proton therapy. You go into the little treatment room, and this guy comes in, and you can see right here. This is that medical device that I mentioned earlier. That he comes in with this thing in his hand. Anyway, here's something that I need to point out as well. As I said, this is a legitimate radiation treatment, and it's founded on decent scientific principles. It exploits what's called the Bragg peak. When you are getting radiation treatment for a tumor, the radiation beam, of course, passes straight through your body, which is good, for example, if you're getting dental x-rays, because that's the only way they can photograph things. But if you're getting high dosage of radiation for a tumor, the radiation may indeed hit the tumor and kill it, but it's going to go out and it's going to damage organs as it exits. Now, in standard photon beam therapy, the beam follows a trajectory that looks a little bit something like this. The vertical axis here is the dosage of radiation, and the horizontal axis is the depth of tissue. And you can see the photon beam follows a trajectory that looks a little bit like the rolling hills of Napa Valley. Ideally, you would want the beam to hit your tumor right there where it's at its highest intensity. But even if it does, as it trails outside of your body, it's going to damage other organs. Now, proton therapy, which is available at MD Anderson, and by the way, this is the only place in Texas where it is available, follows a much different trajectory that looks more like the mesas of Arizona and New Mexico. It reaches its peak intensity and then drops off precipitously, and by doing so, it spares normal tissue. And because of this, it has been especially indicated for childhood central nervous system tumors because the child's body is very small, their organs are still developing, and you must be very precise in where you deliver radiation to a child. And as I said, it's hugely expensive. Startup costs are about $200 million for a proton therapy machine. And usually it's, as I said, about 2 to 5 times expensive. To put it into context, proton therapy regimen typically costs you about $50,000. The median family annual income in the United States is about $52,000. Not many families can part with a year's salary to pay for this treatment. And something else which I hope we'll have time to talk about at the end of my presentation. If you are on the Affordable Care Act and you live in Harris County, you don't have access to this anymore. How bad is that? Well, here is what MD Anderson does not say. This is an article that appeared in Radiotherapy and Oncology. The lead author was Aaron Allen. The article appeared in 1912. And Aaron et al. Say current data do not provide sufficient evidence to recommend proton beam therapy outside of clinical trials. It looks good on paper, but it has never been demonstrated to lead to better outcomes than the much cheaper photon therapy. Here's another quote from the same article. There is no suggestion that it is superior to photon-based approaches. And then again, they say there is currently insufficient data to form a firm recommendation for proton beam therapy. Now, how has the medical community responded to this rather dismal news? They've decided to build 10 more proton therapy centers across the nation. As of 2013, Blue Shield of California, Aetna, and Cigna have all decided to stop or curtail coverage for proton therapy. And citing and here's a very interesting quote from actually a confidential memo that I found at Cancer Letters, citing a failure of investigators to demonstrate in scientifically robust fashion the putative benefits of this therapy. Indiana University School of Medicine has decided to shut down its proton therapy center. I mentioned earlier that this is especially indicated for child CNS tumors, but it's also used extensively for prostate cancer. Why would they do that if it has not shown any benefit? I think there's a very simple explanation. If you look down here, the money follows the disease. Here are some estimated diagnoses for 2012. Respiratory symptom cancers, about 240,000 cases a year. Breast cancer, 234,000. Prostate cancer, 220,000 cases. And pediatric central nervous system tumors, 3,500. which is about 2% of the cases of prostate cancer. Now, if you're trying to recoup $200 million that you've invested in your proton therapy machine, where are you going to look for patients? Are you going to look in the 2%, or are you going to get money from the 98%? I think the choice is rather obvious. Now, the media have also gotten into this this racket. This is an article I found in the Telegraph. They have announced a game-changing cure for cancer, game-changing being one of those adjectives. It actually entered the lexicon in English in about 2003 and quickly wore out its welcome. This article is a summary of a paper that appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine, combined nivolumab and ipilimumab or monotherapy in treating in untreated melanoma. This was a test of the new generation immunotherapeutic drugs that are being used for cancer. The article in the Telegraph says, and I'm quoting here, the authors claim that terminally ill cancer patients have been effectively cured by a game-changing new class of drugs. Fox News dialed it down when they reported on the same story. And I want to point out one other thing too, is this is probably the only presentation you will ever hear in which the phrases Fox News and dialed it down appear in the same sentence. They said that it's no longer a cure for cancer, but it's a possible cure for cancer with a question mark at the end of it. Pretty clever. But there's a dead giveaway in this article. If you scroll down a little bit more and look at it, Fox News also says that prostate cancer is also seeing advancements using immunotherapy treatment. A drug called Provenge, which we've already discussed, is the first and only FDA-approved immunotherapy for advanced prostate cancer. They're using words that come basically almost verbatim from Dendrian's promotional material. Dendrian by this time had already gone out of business 5 months earlier. So what actually happened in the study? Well, here is the this is the paper as it appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine. This is the paper that both the Telegraph and Fox News were bragging about. And a few other facts about this one. The study involved 945 patients. In the course of the study, 35% had to withdraw because of adverse effects. The median time of progression-free survival for ipilimumab was 2.9 months at a cost of $158,000. The median progression time survival for nivolumab was 6.9 months at a cost of $103,000. Taken together, the drugs, the progression-free survival time was 11 months at a cost of $250,000 per patient. And finally, the number of times that the word cure appeared in the original article, 0. I've got a couple of examples. I think I have time. This is about a 6-minute video. This is of Dr. Rhonda Pino, president of MD Anderson. This appeared on CNBC Money Watch. And they were discussing the annual meeting of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. And here's the key quote that I would like you to listen for. The interviewer says, there are companies out there, from an investment standpoint, for our audience is obviously looking for money-making opportunities, trying to figure out how to capitalize on what's going on in healthcare. Now, the company that Dr. DePino will mention in this interview is AVEO Pharmaceuticals, and he makes reference to a game-changing and very effective drug with a superior profile. The drug in question is tivozanib, and it's for renal care carcinoma. Let me play you the video. The interesting stuff starts at the 2:45 mark.
This year we'll spend an estimated $80 billion meanwhile on cancer drugs worldwide, a number expected to only climb. There are currently nearly 900 drugs in development for cancer treatment and thousands of studies being conducted. This all coming as the world's biggest cancer research meeting kicks off in just a few weeks. That is ASCO, the annual American Society of Clinical Oncology meeting, or ASCO, is widely watched by Wall Street, usually triggers moves in a number of related companies. So what might we expect this year? Joining me now is Dr. Ronald DePino. He is president of MD Anderson's Cancer Center, one of the most well-respected centers exclusively for cancer patient care and research. Dr. DePino, it is great to have you on the program.
Good to be here.
Good to see you again. When you see something like Facebook, it's got to remind you, deja vu a bit, of some of the biotech situations that you've seen. You're an entrepreneur yourself.
Right. Well, we are at a very special transition in the history of the biotech sector in general and cancer drug development. The costs that you quoted are ones that are driven largely by the fact that we didn't have all of the technology needed to be able to illuminate a path towards identifying key targets, generating drugs against those targets, and knowing what fight to pick in the clinic, actually which patients should get those drugs. That has changed. It has changed very quickly. So we now have much of the technological capability to really understand cancer on a very fundamental level, to be able to develop drugs more efficiently and more effectively.
Well, this is part of the reason that we even started this segment, Money in Medicine, because I've been astounded at the money moving into healthcare and the activity around cancer-related issues, and the fact that technology has really enabled so much more. You said to me once, we have a moonshot opportunity right now to cure cancer, is what you said to me.
This is an historic moment in the history of science. Never before has there been such a powerful confluence of technological capabilities that are game-changing. The ability to sequence in hours for a few $1,000s what took billions of dollars in a decade only 10 years ago. The computational firepower that we have, the nanotechnology advances in material sciences, in imaging, the ability to manipulate genes at will. All of these things that happen at one moment, and essentially it's given us the complete toolbox to understand cancer on a fundamental level and do something about it.
Are there companies out there, from an investment standpoint, for our audience is obviously looking for money-making opportunities, trying to figure out how to capitalize on what's going on in health, this marriage of healthcare, technology, and biotech. Are there companies out there that you think are most promising? And also, what is going to come out of this ASCO meeting, you think?
Well, the companies, in the biotech sector, you have to be very careful because you have to really understand which companies are driven by good management, that are driven by the kinds of scientific advances that I've mentioned. And there are a few of them out there. Historically, of course, Genentech was one of the prime examples of this. More recently, a company...
They were the first to come out with that targeted...
Right, targeted. So you think about Herceptin and so on. Those are very important advances. And in fact, some of the most effective drugs have come out of the idea of using science to shepherd cancer drug development. A company that I was involved in founding, AVEO Pharmaceuticals, one of the more successful biotechs.
That's AVEO as a symbol.
That's correct. Has exploited science-driven drug discovery, and it's about to announce, or has announced already publicly, and it will present in detail at ASCO, a very effective drug that has a superior safety profile for renal cell cancer, a major unmet need. So these are massive advances in our ability to really do something
something about a disease that has long been very refractory.
And are you seeing the kind of money required moving into this area? Are you seeing investments increase around this? I mean, healthcare as a group has been one of the more active groups.
Yes, in general. In the biotech area, I would say it's been up and down. And in terms of starter-ups, the young companies, the privately held companies, since about 2007, it's been under significant stress. So the companies that are being generated today are ones that are rather anemic and are not well positioned to harness the full power of what we're capable of doing. And this brings up a very important point. If you look at the drug development ecosystem, where you have academia doing discovery and then biotech bringing it to proof of concept and large pharma taking it across the commercialization goal line, that ecosystem historically has a 95% failure rate in cancer drug development. This is one of the reasons why drugs are so expensive.
Right.
So at MD Anderson, given that we're the #1 cancer center, we have a critical mass of talent and capability, we can do things that can bring that ball down the field so that the launch points are more effective in going into the private sector. And that will change, I think, the rate of failure rather dramatically.
All right, this is just an extraordinary story from a money standpoint, but mostly from a science standpoint and the hope around cancer. Doctor, good to have you on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
We so
Maria.
appreciate it. Dr. Ronald DePino joining us, President, University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center.
As I mentioned, the drug he was referring to is Tevisinib, a game-changing drug, of course. And the company he was referring to is Aveo Pharmaceuticals, which he said he was involved in. He was actually the co-founder of Aveo. The other co-founder was Dr. Linda Chin, a dermatologist formerly at MD Anderson, who happens to be Dr. Pino's wife as well. Did he just say that this drug has received FDA approval?
No.
No, he said it had a superior safety record and it was very effective and it was game-changing. So, stop me if you've heard this story before. Here were the headlines. Just a little bit later than that, the FDA actually rejected this drug. And here is a quote from Dr. Michael Sakaris. "I cannot picture how I would be able to talk with a patient about treating him or her with a drug, Tevisinib, that would allow a person to live without progression longer, but possibly to die faster than if I had treated the person with another available renal cell carcinoma drug." The SEC subsequently investigated Dr. DePino and also Dr. Chin because there were allegations that they knew about this drug's poor performance record before Dr. DePino went on CNBC to tout its benefits. A number of shareholders promptly sued Aveo for misleading them. So what is going on in the world of these game-changing cancer drugs? I have this quote from Dr. Carol Sikora, who is an oncologist at the University of Buckingham. I'm not sure if you can read it, but it says, "Positive stories are carefully placed by smart marketing execs on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry. It all sounds so convincing, but the reality is that there is a sophisticated conspiracy to hide products being sold to bigger companies by small startups to get more investment for the industry from Wall Street, or simply to ramp up share prices to make short-term gains." In January of this year, Aveo laid off 66% of its workforce, and it has ended its research activities. This was the company that had the superior safety record and that was so well managed while Dr. DePino was there. I have just a couple more slides and then I'd like to open it for discussion. This is an article that appeared in the Houston the Houston Business Journal on May 17th, 2013. Dr. DePino announced that MD Anderson would freeze wages and curb construction, and that meant no pay for workers, including faculty members and administrators, and including Dr. DePino. Just kidding, he didn't include him. He got a raise. Of course he got a raise in 2013. Oh, and he got one in 2014 as well. There are nearly 20,000 other people who work for MD Anderson who did not get raises. And Dr. DePino oddly blamed the Affordable Health Care Act, the budget sequester, and continuing federal deficits for MD Anderson's financial problems, which I find kind of strange because right now, as I mentioned earlier, if you are on the Affordable Health Care Act and you are living in Harris County, you don't get to go to MD Anderson. So there's a financial crisis. This article appeared on May 17th, 2013, and this one appeared 1 week later. It's published May 24th, 2013 in Science Insider. Lavish furnishings questioned at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Dr. Linda Chin, who happens to be the wife of Dr. DePino, spent about $2 million renovating her own office. And I think I promised John that I would show you a picture of the $7,700 Florence Knoll settee that was a part of that renovation. Yeah, $7,700 for the, I saw those at Walmart for like $259 or something. I'm not sure. A week after the freeze. Dr. Chin also used her connections to secure an $18 million grant from the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas without any scientific review. The grant led to the mass resignation of the scientific reviewers at CPRIT, including Alfred Gilman, who is a Nobel laureate for cancer research. Not long after that, CPRIT was forced to close its doors because of the scandal. What is going on here? I think there's a fairly easy explanation. This is a graph showing the estimated number of cancer survivors in the US from now up to about 2030. It is expected to grow consistently as the American population ages. Now here's another graph of age-adjusted death rates from cancer. The solid blue and pink lines that you see here, these are age-adjusted death rates across time from heart disease, which is still the #1 killer. And you'll notice that they have been declining dramatically since the 1950s. Heart disease is down by about 81%. Now you'll notice the cancer is pretty much flatlined. Depending on which data set you review, the age-adjusted survival rates for cancer now are somewhere between 5 and 14%. Adam Smith, in his memorable work, Wealth of Nations, described exactly this situation. He made reference to the black cloth of mourning. And he pointed out that in times of calamity, in any economy, the demand for black cloth will skyrocket because people are going into mourning. And the way the free market is supposed to work is that when there is this new need, people will start creating new products and they will make money off of it, which to me is just fine. This is how free economies are supposed to work. But what would happen if there were no black cloth? Or in the case of cancer, what if demand were to continue to rise and the treatments stagnated? What if there were no treatments, or what if there were treatments that were underperforming? By 2020, the cancer industry will be a $178 billion per year business. Is it reasonable to suppose that big pharma, complementary and alternative medicines, corporate hospitals are simply going to walk away from $178 billion every year because they have no products? Or is it more reasonable to assume that they will market these treatments more aggressively, that they will oversell treatments that they have, that they will understate the side effects, that they will not encourage patients to do cost-benefit survival comparisons between treatments like proton and photon therapy? That is the situation that we're in. And what bothers me about this is the story that I just told you about Provenge. One of the reasons, apparently, that Provenge went under is that patients and doctors just did not buy in. People apparently decided that they simply were not going to pay $90,000 to live an extra 4 months with a terminal diagnosis. What does that say about the future of cancer treatment? This year, 586,000 Americans will die of cancer. To put that in perspective, you remember the horrific 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that killed 250,000 people. Imagine 2 tsunamis washing across the shores of America every year indefinitely. What are we going to do about that? Thank you for hearing me out, and I think we have time for discussion. Yes, Francois?
Yeah, hi. I'm very disturbed by your talk. Look at this graph. Are you saying that first of all, both lines are coming down? I don't see any jiggles or ups or down. It's a good trend. Are you saying that the heart research, the heart doctors are much more honest than the cancer doctors?
No, I don't think it's not a question of honesty. I think
cancer research is hard. Okay?
I think that's right. Exactly
and the best way we're going to solve this is by allowing profit, so that people have the desire to do it. And I don't care how much she pays for her couch, okay? But the fact is 95% of these drugs fail, and I want that 5% to win, okay?
I do too.
Right, the proton machines.
My wish is don't make it happen.
The proton machine, I was kind of involved in the proton machine in Loma Linda. I've been on a software contract on that. That got working on the first patient in 1990. It was very promising because it did not do collateral damage. It was a great advance at the time, okay? So there was a big, brouhaha around those machines. They're very expensive to build. They're $200 million, okay? Well, somebody has to pay for them, okay? So they built a few, it worked. Now, you can't compare a drug that came out 4 years ago with machines that were out 25 years ago. Sure, maybe those drugs today are better than that. It continually advances, and the way we're going to get better advance is by a free market and profit, okay? Both of my parents died early because of lousy Canadian medical care. They died early of cancer because my father could not get the treatment that he could have in the United States, okay? So I do not agree with any of your talk. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We open free discussion. Have you considered writing a rebuttal to the paper from Allen et al.?
I could. I'll look it up, but I'm just outraged by this.
Because you don't have to trust. You don't have to take my word for it. No one here has to take my word for it. Go online, and you can find out for yourself. For example, why do you imagine that the Proton Center at Indiana University closed down? They're saying because it doesn't work. That's not me saying it.
Okay.
That's them.
I don't think you understood what I said. In 1990, first of all, that got invented in 46. 1946.
In 46, and in 1990 at
Correct.
Loma Linda.
Exactly.
So it's not exactly cutting edge.
It's
And
not.
it's been around for a
Okay.
long time.
Yeah, but now maybe we have something better, so they close that down because, hey, we got
Well-
something better now. That's normal. That's fine. Sucks, but it's fine. It's the way it is. Live with it, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's very arrogant what you're saying, because poor people, there's no possible way, even middle class, as you said, can't afford these types of treatments. Somebody's making buku dollars on these treatments. The investor class is who's making buku dollars on
You're
this.
welcome to invest
But
in
I'm
those
not,
drug
I'm
companies.
talking right now, bud.
Okay.
What I'm not hearing is anything about lifestyle changes, diet changes. Only about 3% of cancers are genetic. Okay, the other are environmental and lifestyle.
Yes, and in fact, cigarette smoking, or tobacco use has declined by about 33% just in this century alone. And that actually explains quite a bit of the rather modest decline that you can see in cancer here. So yes, you're right. We could probably cut cancer cases in half by lifestyle changes. Yes, I agree with you, and please feel free to disagree with me or Francois or anyone else. Nancy has a question in the back. Yes.
Okay, so I am a marketing consultant and writer, and I work independently for MD Anderson, for 2 different departments at MD Anderson, and I can tell you, I'm not a spinner of this kind of stuff. I'm just a reporter of things that I'm told to report on. And the researchers in several areas that I've had the opportunity to get to know and visit with will kind of openly admit that the money follows where the best disease opportunities are. The people who study pancreatic cancer, which just breaks your heart listening to their stories and their mouth models, and they're doing this and that, and it's like one of the top 4 killers, I want to say.
Yes, yeah, and
they're not getting
and the rates for the survival rates for pancreatic cancer have not
the number
changed a
of
bit.
people unfortunately impacted is smaller than breast cancer or lung cancer or some of these other major cancers, and so they don't get the funding and the research opportunities that the other cancers do. And they'll kind of be out there going, help, help, help. And you know, if you're leukemia and you have kids that are 7 and under, people are like, oh my God, we've got to do something about that. So there's a whole funding issue internally that goes on behind some of the research that then drives, I think, some of the outcomes.
Well, let me say one thing that I will agree with Francois on, is that my biggest fear is that I don't want anybody to think that I'm just being an ungrateful whiner who got cancer treatment and 5 years later decided to complain about it. The fact is that I got excellent health care for my cancer. I got it from real doctors, not from people who are dabbling in complementary and alternative medicine. And Francois and I have talked about this before, we agree on that. I don't care if, my doctor saved my life. I don't care if my doctor gets 6-figure salary. I'm happy with that. But Francois, at some point, it is perfectly legitimate to continue in scientific investigation into the difference between photon and proton therapy. But at some point, we will have to decide, is this really working or is it not? Is this really cost effective or is it not? And check on MD Anderson's website, see if they do a comparison of outcomes of proton therapy versus photon therapy. They do not. You can check on any of the 13 centers. They do not, they don't want you to know that. I think Benita has a question, yes.
This is kind of unrelated, but at the beginning you talked about the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and you just made a mention that they're against the affordable health care. And can you kind of explain that link and what you think is behind that?
But they're not getting patients from affordable health care.
They don't take any insurance?
Well, they'll take PPOs usually. And as you probably heard in the news, every insurance company in Houston that used to have PPOs canceled them, and now if you get it in Harris County through through Obamacare, you're limited to HMOs, and MD Anderson will not accept that insurance. And as far as I know, if you go to Cancer Treatment Centers of America, you'll be out of network and you'll have to pay a lot of money. Now, people with a lot of money can do it. I'm more concerned about the middle class and the lower middle class.
So we're creating two classes of people.
What do you mean
Oh,
creative?
With, well, I
We
mean,
had that.
you're having,
Yeah, I think probably, you know, the Affordable Care Act has been one thing that has saved a lot of people from dying of cancer, honestly. Because when you don't have insurance, you usually get, by the time you see a doctor, you're at an advanced stage and your outcome is much less likely. And Vic is...
Yeah, we'll have to wrap things up. We can take maybe one, maybe two real quick questions.
Yes, sir.
Why do those insurance companies cancel all those PPOs?
They're not making money.
They don't pay enough money to cover their costs?
And that's the only reason they're not. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, he said that like he's with for-profit. Like I understand profit, but we're losing people. We're losing lives, and what's the price
You're
on
gonna
that?
lose a lot more if profit is not involved, I guarantee you that. Yes, you will, guarantee you.
Yes, sir.
On Big Pharma, I got several handouts on the back table. One of them has to do with Big Pharma. And let me point out, you know, the interview with Dr. DePino, number one, if you go to a business TV channel, they're going to be talking about business. But looking at the numbers, the gold price and the Dow Jones and so forth and so on, that's from about 5 years ago.
Right.
The last thing to say is MD Anderson has rather recently given us the new immunologic treatments, Dr. Allison, and you can
Yes,
ask,
you got the last girl one.
and you can ask Jimmy Carter about that.
Right. All right. I think we have to wrap things up, but yeah, thank you for the.